Ready? Awesome. Well, welcome to a conversation about saturated grace groups. We're excited to have you here and let's jump right in. All of you is welcome here at Saturated Grace. You have a place at the table that is uniquely filled only by you. We're better with you here, and our awareness expands as everyone engages and leans in. You belong if you've experienced trauma of any kind. You belong if you desire authentic connections with divine love, yourself, and others that is free of judgment and fixing. You belong if you feel like you're barely getting by, if you're coping from day to day. We want you to know that all of you is welcome and all are welcome. And we differentiate from that, between that. Saturated Grace is an inclusive community. We walk with individuals who may be not neurodiverse, they're part of the LGBTQ plus community, or spiritually diverse. Everyone is really welcome here, and we want it to be that type of inclusive environment. We provide spiritual direction for both groups and individuals. We provide spiritual companionship, retreat facilitation, professional writing, and memberships that invite experiential learning and growth. Hi, I'm Audre Rickard, and I am founder of Saturated Grace. I look at the world through a lens as a certified spiritual director who lives with neurodiversity. I'm a mama of two fabulous humans. One is a teenager and the other one a preteen. I love hosting and co-creating safe communities where people are invited to experience being fiercely loved, always accepted, fully seen, known, and heard. I love all things nature. Sleeping and sitting on the ground are just what I absolutely enjoy. The movement of water in all its forms, it fascinates me, and my feet are usually cold, even in the summer.
I love these pictures that you've put up there. My favorite actually is the one with the cake and stuff like that all over it because it's quirky, it's fun, it's, just spontaneous and being you. And then the sitting by the river and just water peace, enjoying nature. Love your beautiful smile in your eyes. Just shows your heart. You so care
Mhm.
about so many people, um, and that you ponder and think, deeper than most people, because of the work that you have been doing. So I love those pictures.
Thank you, Rachelle.
Mm-hmm.
Our conversation today will be interactive and contemplative and invitational. At the end of our time, you'll have an opportunity just to take a moment to reflect, to notice what you notice, and to just to be with that. I want to acknowledge that I may be introducing you to a new language and a new way of really being. I invite you to this place where freedom abounds. Whatever feels that arise to the surface for you, it's okay. All of you is welcome here. What I mean by that is that there's no right or wrong answer here. There really is space for even to not even know. It's okay if you don't know. It's all right. And then there's times when there might be conflicting things, and that is okay too. So, whatever is here, it is wisdom, it is good, and it is welcomed. So I invite you now to take a moment to give yourself permission to arrive as you are and accept whatever bubbles up. You get to give yourself permission, as I have invited you to do that. To do that stuff. Alexa, stop. I'm so sorry. My Alexa decided to pop in. So fun. We live life in the moment here. So let's take a moment to arrive. And what do I mean by arrive? Maybe we haven't thought about this before. Arriving is about being present to this moment that you're in right now. It's about slowing down and being aware of your body and your soul and the moment that you have just arrived at. Now, you may be familiar with arriving, you might not be, but let's just do it together. So I invite you to follow along, and I want you just to be in the space that you are. And if it is safe to do so, pause, and I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to take 2 deep breaths. As you're breathing in through your nose, I want you to hold it at the top for 2 seconds before you release it through your mouth. Now take a moment to notice your body. Notice where your body touches the chair and how it's holding you. It's grounding you to the earth. How are your feet touching or resting on the floor? Wiggle your toes. Notice if there's any tightness or warmth or cold sensations in your body right now. And accept them as they are. Now take 2 more deep breaths. And when you feel ready and present and grounded, I want you to open your eyes, your ears, and your heart to our time together. Yeah. I'm so glad you are here today. Welcome to Saturated Grace. My hope is that our paths crossing today will lead us to walking alongside one another for as long as you need and for as long as you desire. As we continue, I want to notice together some common experiences that have set us up to inflict further violence on ourselves. How we've responded to these experiences may initially have been helpful, but as time progressed, the tool, the strategy, maybe even the mindset became not helpful and maybe even harmful. When this happens, we can become numb, isolated, we disassociate, or as Tara Brach says, we live in a trance. So I wonder if you have noticed this happening in yourself. Have you noticed if you're in a trance where you do things, you just don't even know why you're doing it? You just do it. Maybe it's a reaction to someone. Maybe it's like just maybe the continual patterns of thoughts that you have. Another place we might notice when we're striving and achieving, and it doesn't get us the results it once did. Have you ever noticed this where it's like, I need to just pull up my bootstraps just a little bit more, and if I get that, then maybe that is another place where we might inflict violence on ourselves because it's not working. Now, as you answer my questions, I invite you to hold every response with respect and generosity with yourself. and with those in this group. This is done by choosing to refrain from judging responses within yourself or with others as good or bad. Why this is really important is it helps the space to remain neutral, judgment free, and safe for everyone. It allows us to be curious, and it puts oxygen into the room so that everyone has a place to be heard and seen and known. It's also a way that we are practicing how to hold space for ourselves and others with some guardrails. So I've learned over the years that while I can be really good at naming people's experiences, I kind of have a knack for it. I can sometimes be really off too. But I wonder, what has been your experiences? So when an experience resonates with you, I invite you to just raise your hand in acknowledgement that yes, that does resonate. Or nod your head, whatever works for you, and in just being aware that that touches a nerve. So raise your hand if you've read numerous self-help books to fix habits or lack thereof, and you feel stuck. And now these strategies are not working when you find yourself stuck again. Or maybe you have silently struggled to fit in, maybe in religious or institutional communities or in social communities. You may have always felt like the person on the outside, even when you tried really, really hard to fit on the inside. And this could even be with your friend groups. Have you ever motivated yourself with the coulda, shoulda, wouldas to be good enough? I should have done this. I would have done that. I could have done that, but I didn't. Yeah. How about I've experienced a traumatic event? Maybe it's death, divorce, job loss, abuse, moving, loss in general, or health challenges. And your life has been turned upside down and you can't seem to get back to yourself. Yeah. Mhm. And maybe it's this one: the daily grind exhausts you to the point that you struggle to enjoy the little things in life. It's not that you don't want to enjoy them, but you just can't. I get it. I so get it. Yeah. So I want you to be kind as you are courageous in naming these. I wonder what it's like to name it. Does it bring you an awareness of what it is? Does it lighten it a little bit? Does it bring a little space to name what's going on? Yeah. Hmm.
I'd say it's a little scary too.
Yeah. Yeah, it does require some courageousness, right? Absolutely. Yeah, so be kind to yourself in that awareness and how you've grown. So, you may have wondered how these common experiences have set us up to inflict further violence on ourselves. These experiences have long legs in our lives because they've created a context or a structure for our brain to become critical beyond the initial help that it started out to be. See, not all these things were really intended for our harm. Some of them were intended for our good. But The critical and judgmental nature of our culture has normalized toxic shame as a motivator to change. The messages of shame are reinforced when we experience unsafe or dysfunctional relationships, cultural judgmental norms, religious trauma, and hard life circumstances. I'd also add into here social media shame. Being on a bigger stage where more shame can be heaped on us and ridicule. That's hard. So our soul's natural response is to preserve itself. So it will run, it will mask, it will lash out, and or it will hide to be safe. And so of course it would. Of course it would. It is a self-preserving, it's self-preserving the good behind all these things that don't look so good sometimes. So while our greatest desire is to be seen, heard, and known, our soul is smart enough to know that it needs safety first before it will allow itself to be authentically seen, heard, and known.
Mhm.
And that includes to ourselves.
Yeah.
That includes to ourselves. So it needs to feel safe before it will accept the gaze of love.
Mm. Mm.
It's preserving
Yeah.
itself even when it chooses not to accept a compliment.
Mm.
There's a self preservation involved with that. So I wonder if in your past or currently you're being judged for being different. When you think of this instance, what do you notice happens in your body? Is it opening up or is it constricting? Do you feel a
Mm.
heaviness in your gut, something in your throat?
Mhm.
Yeah. hmm It's all an awareness of that our body is telling us something. That's why I'm asking you the question. What does our body tell us?
Mhm.
So, in my own work, I was invited to notice how I judged myself and others. And this is one of those ways. I noticed that I had a really strong opinion or resistance to the way a person was doing something. An example for me was when I began to notice how very critical I was of people who arrived to their appointments late. I would covertly judge them very harshly, and yet to their face, I was understanding and kind, like any decent human being is supposed to be. Underneath it, I thought badly of them. I didn't give them the benefit of the doubt. And the main reason I didn't was because in my own life, I was late for everything, and secretly, I would beat myself up for it. Being toxically judgmental was taught to me through various monologues I had experienced from previous employers, spiritual devotions on respect or professionalism, and personal pride. The messages I received over the years were for my good. Like, I think arriving on time is probably a good thing, it's not a bad thing. But shame twists the good into harm and pain and suffering. So instead of just being late, I would add more onto it. I would shame myself, telling myself that I must not value the person or respect them enough to show up on time. I would chide myself for being lazy or not planning appropriately. And I couldn't really win for losing.
Mm.
So when I did show up on time, I more often than not was mad at myself for forgetting something or not taking care of myself. I didn't get myself something to eat or I forgot my lunch. The shame had the potential to spiral into fear by adding things like my friend would stop being my friend and I would be alone forever if I didn't start showing up on time. Or Oh my goodness. You can see it. It's heavy and
Mhm.
it's exhausting.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it sounds like this story resonates. Whether it's a common experience, shame and fear is a cycle for me, just like it is for you.
Yeah.
And this cycle, honestly, has never helped me to be better at arriving on time. In fact, I got worse. It got worse. It took me time to get to a place where I could listen underneath the chaos. But first, I had to learn about the internal voice, the internal violence that I did to myself. And then the external violence that I do to others when I'm critical or I judge them for them and their choices. See, we're always on both sides. We judge ourselves and we judge others. And we
Mhm.
inflict harm whether we do it intentionally or not.
Mhm. Mhm.
But it's an awareness to know it. So
Mhm.
shame can be subtle. It can be cloaked in sentences we use with the coulda, shoulda, wouldas. We have been judged or have judged others against the backdrop of neurotypical systems and institutions. And the judgment of what is good and bad within these systems is not always harmful. Sometimes it can create some positive change that is helpful, but it can become toxic when there's no space to be human. And our soul needs to fragment itself to be okay. Unfortunately, in our culture, judgment has morphed into toxic shame that says, there's something wrong with me and I can no longer belong as I am. In truth, all humans experience shame. Some people might even say and suggest that shame can be positive. I don't necessarily carry that same thought. I think it always turns into something that is not helpful. So, how this resonates with each person looks differently. We all work hard to belong. And sometimes in our striving to belong, we begin to accept that shame is always going to be our constant companion. As humans, we internalize these messages by continuing the harm when we're by ourselves. We don't even know we are doing it because the harm is covert and seems usual because the messages of harm are ones we have heard audibly and physically for years. We continue to do violence to ourselves when we continue saying the harmful message to ourselves in private and cryptically backhanding ourselves when talking with our friends. It may also appear in repeated behaviors that are harmful to us and we can't stop doing them.
Mhm.
It's the ongoing violence with words and harmful behaviors that becomes a shame spiral that keeps our soul stuck and isolated. And I say, of
Mhm.
course. Of course, we would keep our soul hidden. It's just not safe to be out in the open, to be about what is going on for us under the surface. Sometimes we're unaware that what is happening for us to feel unsafe because the chaos and the noise that swirls around us is overwhelming. So our emotions of fight, flight, freeze, fawn are just normalized. Our nervous systems are firing rapidly all the time.
Mhm.
And of course, they would be. So, why is a gentler and kinder way important when it comes to connecting with ourselves and others? I have a word picture that my mentor shared with me that has stuck with me, and I refer back to it regularly. Bunnies. Bunnies are cute and they're fluffy, and these inviting qualities make it seem like it would be really easy just to reach out and touch them or hold them. But in reality, bunnies in the wilderness are skittish. They live in hyper awareness to their surroundings. They can't help themselves. This hyper awareness is a part of what it is to be a bunny. They're not
Mhm.
conscientious of this trait, and this trait helps them to stay safe and not in the jaws of a predator. They prefer hiding under bushes and only coming out when they feel safe. And when they do come out, they're on heightened guard for predators and anything that could do them harm. Sometimes bunnies will choose hiding even in a briar patch where the briars could hurt them. And they go there because it's familiar, it's safe. And in some ways, the briars could harm the predator. Yeah.
Mhm.
So I want you to recognize, what do you notice about the bunny?
Mhm. He's definitely aware, and his ears are
Hmm.
all perked up and on guard to make sure that he's ready for everything and anything that comes his way.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
How are you like, how are you or your soul like the bunny?
I would say that because of my trauma and past and experiences in life, that I am always on guard and
Mhm.
always checking myself and making sure that I am ready, prepared, and have all the information so I can work
Mm.
out, do whatever it is I need to do to be able to escape or to evade whatever could harm me. And yeah, so I like the briar patch kind of thought, because it's, even though everybody else can see that it's toxic or whatever, I'm used to,
Mhm.
because my life has always been one toxic thing or one um, uh, dangerous situation to the
Mm.
next, that you just take it in stride and you take it as normal. I know how to deal with this.
Yeah.
Where in the unknown of that open space is scary to go into, because you really don't know what's hiding from behind the
Yeah.
tree or bushes or whatever.
Yeah.
Where the briar patches, at least I have the pokey thing that, yes, it'll hurt me, but I bet you it'll hurt more uh, me, or at least do something. So yeah.
Right. Well, there's an awareness, like the hypervigilance is what I hear in
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
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 So I want you to take a moment just to acknowledge the sensations, the energy, or the emotions that are just in your body with this word picture. Maybe
Mhm.
you notice that there's some resistance to it because you've never thought of a word picture of trying to bring something out of it as it reflects and means something back to you. That's okay. That's accepted here. Even if you have some skepticism of this exercise, that or confusion, I want you to just accept that those things are there. It's okay. If there's tension, if there's openness, if there's judgment, that is a place here to accept. So whatever you're feeling in your body, wherever it is, I just want you to take a moment, put your hand on it if you need to, and I just want you to accept that feeling where it's at. Name it
Mhm.
for yourself and hold that space. Maybe it's my side hurts. Maybe it's my feet hurt. Whatever that is, accept that message that's being spoken through your body. Now we're going to do, as we just take that moment, we're going to investigate the sensation a little bit, but we're going to notice where in our body and consider how it's like the bunny. How is the feeling that you notice in your body similar to what a bunny would be feeling?
I want to say it's like the we've seen Bambi and stuff like that of Thumper, and it's like of his fit, and like that is what inside feels like to me, of
Yeah.
not knowing what I don't know, or what step or whatever.
Mm,
It's like that nervous energy
mm,
inside,
yeah.
wanting to come out but afraid to let it go because you don't know what it's going to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. That's such a great awareness. So, as you have named that, we're going to take a moment to nurture it. And lastly, as a way of nurturing ourselves, I want you to just close your eyes and imagine seeing that bunny on the edge of the meadow. And you're out in the clearing wishing this bunny would come out so you could get a better view of them. And they do have this anxiety and they do have this unknowing. And so, in your imagination, I want you to ask the bunny what it needs for it to come out into the meadow. And whatever it needs, that's what we're going to do in this space. This time here is to create safety for that bunny to come out. Your soul is much like this bunny. It is hyper aware of unsafe conditions, not only within yourself, but also externally. So just be kind to that bunny. Be kind to the soul. Where the bunny is where it needs to be safe. If the bunny stays on the side of the meadow and doesn't come out, that's where it needs to not be safe right now. And that is okay. Acknowledging where the bunny is okay. And accepting it. So as you are acknowledging that, I want you to be kind as you are being brave. Because you're taking time to notice feelings and energy and stimulation as a human who's been coping. And so this is a place where we tread lightly with ourselves, and it's just so important to do so. Hmm. So I wonder if you've ever noticed that our social and religious constructs have taught us to be compartmentalized. Everything has its place. Whatever is uncomfortable, we're taught to avoid, deny, subvert at all costs. We're taught to keep the compartments from interacting with each other. And when we get real good at one compartment, then we monetarily feel like we've arrived. What if living compartmentalized is actually eating away at our soul? What if there's a third way of living?
Mhm. Mhm.
What if we're not
Mhm.
supposed to be good at compartmentalizing? Compartmentalizing is not living in freedom or in wholeness. It might
Mhm.
look like it is, but these fragmented walls, the fragments, are missing wisdom from our way of being. Hmm. So I believe all humans desire to live aligned with their whole self in the present. Why this is important is that our whole self is divinely good. And underneath all the layers of judgment and negative self belief is a genuinely good, sacred, beautiful, and whole soul. When we grasp this reality, we can realize that living aligned to our inner good deeply roots us to live out lives filled with happiness, contentment, peace, satisfaction, freedom, and openness. This is what living in the present does for us. It's ongoing, it's never ending work, but it is good work of working with ourselves instead of against ourselves. Our world is very noisy. It is hard to hear when the chaos of living is so loud. So while I wish compartmentalizing my life met my deepest desire, in reality, it's not possible, nor is it plausible. My brain really does want it to do work, but it just doesn't. And so, what I have found is life is intended to be complex and paradoxical. Simple one dimensional or compartmentalized solutions gets us stuck in shame and fear cycles. And these cycles inadvertently lead us away from ourselves and they require us to abandon ourselves. So many times to be successful in this world, I find myself going against myself. And it happens so fast and in an automatic kind of way that I don't even notice that I've forgotten me. I'm numb and the chaos is so loud, I'm unable to listen to my soul. My bunny soul is hyper vigilantly working overtime to escape all the potential threats. So, when I first started my journey of greater wholeness and freedom, my nervous system was so taxed, I struggled to quiet myself for even 1 minute because I was a doing person. Those 4 breaths that we took at arrival, that was hard, so hard. And I remember doing that on my first contemplative practice, and it was so uncomfortable. Closing my eyes to arrive felt scary and pointless, to be honest. I thought that giving my soul space to be heard was risky because I believed that my external behavior determined if I was doing okay or not and if I was measuring up. Because I had focused so much on the externals and being good, I discovered as a person living with neurodiversity, I'd been masking for over 40 years with myself and with others. I had formulas on how I was supposed to feel, act, and appear to people. I was scared to explore my inner world, mainly because I didn't know all of who I was, and the part of me that needed the most attention was new to me because I had been denying it for so long. I felt angry, judgmental, harsh, overbearing, and impatient. In addition, my religious upbringing had taught me to not let these emotions get too big, or better yet, it was just best if I denied that I felt them. I was exhausted from striving and achieving. And while I was kind on the outside to people, and people thought I was calm, inside I really was not. I was so worried what I would find when I started to get quiet. Would I even like myself? Would there be any good there? And I also feared that I might find nothing. Well, what if I didn't understand my feelings or the sensations in my body? The
Mhm.
unknown was an abyss of sorts that fostered shame and greater fear. It leaked into my relationships with my girls and work and friendships. It was exhausting and isolating. People didn't know me.
Mhm.
I knew people, but they didn't know me. They only knew a part of me
Mhm.
that I let them in. So, an unexpected invitation presented itself that invited me to learn that there is a third way to find freedom and wholeness. While I don't wish a divorce on anyone, it became the best, worst thing to happen to me. Accepting the worst things in my life has become invitations to greater awareness, freedom, and saturated grace. It became a journey of self discovery that started in prayer retreats where I learned to listen differently than I had before. I joined a small group where we co created a safe place by accepting each other without judgment or fixing. And it was in this group I learned that what compassion, acceptance, and kindness really, really was. I knew these words, but I had never experienced them to my core. It was the first group I was vulnerable with, and that stayed connected to me when I was vulnerable. They taught me through experience to open up to myself, to accept the loving gaze of divine. I would learn experientially how to hold space for myself and others without fixing or judging. This was the foundational work that invited me to lean into discovering my divine goodness within, and that co creating with the Spirit was much less violent, and that there was a sustainable way of living. It was honoring my dignity and my agency without pretending to be someone I was not. I discovered that it was so freeing to be me. Humans do not naturally live aligned to themselves. We are the only species that has tried to be something it is not. I say this because the culture and the religious norms of today usually use a one size fits all approach. They rarely give space for each human to actualize their unique divine expression of living aligned with divine within themselves. What I mean is, we love the expressions that fit still within a social construct that's nice and pretty and that has it all together. We elevate people who are have greater talents or can look a certain way and be a certain way. And if you don't fall within that, you don't feel like you fit. So while we have unique expressions of humanity with music and innovation and all these different ways of doing it, there's still parameters in which we have to show up to be accepted, to be heard, and to be known. So I want to invite you to go on a journey to live in freedom with yourself and others and divine and whatever, honestly, whatever higher power you want to name, or maybe don't name. Maybe it's just love. Maybe love is the thing that goes with you. Maybe it's light that goes with you. The idea here is that we will be growing in increasing measure of acceptance, compassion, grace, patience, kindness, goodness, and love. And that is where freedom is found. There is a third way I have found that's a lot less to do with striving and achieving. It has a lot less with having someone tell you what is wrong with you and how to fix it. You see, freedom comes when we recognize that the density of grace, divine love, is with us no matter what, if we muck it up or if we get it right. It's less about right and wrong. It means that we're loved in the muck and the mire, and also in the sun filled days where we can see for miles. It doesn't naturally come to us. And so because of this, one of the best ways is to learn to live aligned with ourselves is to be in community with others who hold a non-judgmental space that does not invade you or evade you. Parker Palmer invited me to these two terms, invade and evade. And to invade someone is to push my agenda, my beliefs, my judgments, and onto another to help them become what I think is best and what I think that they can be. I don't want to do that anymore. So much pressure. And it's not a place to be safe in. We also have taught them to evade, which is to abandon them. What I've noticed is that we can unknowingly harm ourselves and others by invading them and through evading them. Our presence with ourselves and with others is the most valuable thing that we can offer. Divine love meets us right where we are. Our free will and agency is a hallmark of what it is to be human. We don't grasp the value of our free will and agency when others are invading us or evading us. These are forms of manipulation, really. It's only through compassion filled presence and patience that we truly learn to live aligned with ourselves. It's only in those places that we feel safe, which means we become what we were always intended to be, and we don't have to fight our own good nature to do so. Wouldn't that be cool if we started going with ourselves instead of against ourselves? In saturated grace groups, you learn that it's compassionate to acknowledge your feelings, good, the comfortable, and otherwise. It is also compassionate to accept that you may not understand what you're feeling and to notice that your body is experiencing a change in energy. You grasp what it feels like to trust yourself by being safe with yourself in a group setting, because there's all different layers of what it is to trust. It becomes foundational for you to grow in understanding of yourself as you're ready. In trauma informed spaces, it's really, really important that we don't push people beyond the point that they're ready, and that includes your soul. There's wisdom in your resistance, and there's wisdom in knowing when to heal and when you're ready to heal. Being able to discern when you're ready to take a step and when you're needing to pause and wait. There's freedom in that. Compassion and acceptance is important when it comes to connecting to ourselves, because lasting healthy change and healing is best done without duress or at the choice of the person who's choosing their own path of healing. Let me say that again. Compassion and acceptance is so important when it comes to connecting with ourselves and others, because it creates lasting, healthy change. And healing is best done without duress and at the choice of the person who is choosing their own path of healing. More trauma is harmful and counterproductive. Requiring a victim to make it right to survive is not helpful and piles on more shame and more fear. It's divisive for the person and our community. I'm going to take a moment to note here that acceptance does never means that we are agreeing with the harm or bad behavior of another person. Acceptance does not mean that we don't have healthy boundaries for ourselves and the relationships we have. Acceptance is just an awareness of what is. It's acknowledging it for what it is and how it impacts you. And we do this at varying levels as our consciousness grows in greater awareness. It's from acceptance that we have a clearer picture of what our next step will be as we co-create safety with ourselves, others, and divine love. I wonder, Rachelle, how might you share how a saturated grace group impacted you? What has been most important and vital for you being a part of a saturated grace group?
So being in a group helps me to experience whatever we're going to be learning or what we learned the week before. For me to actually talk about it, because I'm an outward processor, and
Mhm,
so I have to be able to get feedback from many different people, so that way I can understand what feelings are going on
mhm,
inside of me, or how other people react to different
mhm,
situations and stuff like that. And so it can either confirm that I am like everybody else, or it can confirm that maybe I need to work on something, or, you know, pay attention to that, I guess. Not really work
Mhm.
on it, but more attention to, oh, there's something maybe there that I didn't even think about, or I didn't even
Mhm.
know what that was. Um, you know, before of you know, I'd feel stuff in my back, or I'd feel it in my stomach or whatever when something
Mhm.
wasn't right, but it really know what that feeling was until
Mhm.
somebody else said something,
Yeah.
to be able to go, oh, okay, then let's notice, does that happen to me when this happens or that happens? And then it kind of puts everything to perspective, like, oh, you're feeling scared, or you're feeling unsure of something,
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
is where that comes from. Where instead of just blaming, oh, I just had a, you know, meat sandwich or whatever, kind of might feel whatever. So I'd say that, and just being able to um, converse in a safe place where I can test the
Mhm.
water and find out there really are people out there that can accept me for who I am, and not
Mm. Yes.
I think I need to be, because
Mhm.
I'm in, you know, a certain group of situations, whether it's
Mhm.
friends or, you know, church or family or whatever. And then it helps me to really see what type of person I am, and who I
Mm.
pretend to be sometimes. Even in the pretending, I'm still partly me. And so
Of
then I
course.
can press
Of course you are.
into that. Yeah. So I can press into that part that is me, but is
Mhm.
also being the false me, because I'm protecting myself, or because I'm doing something to fit in,
Mhm.
and or to shut off voices that are in my head or whatever. And so
Mhm.
being in a group is the experience, and the more information from different viewpoints, instead of
Mhm.
just myself, or, you know, a best friend, or, you know, a counselor or whatever. And
Mhm.
it seems to actually bring out the I'm safe with multiple people, so that way in the closer relationships I can also test to see how to be comfortable, and
Mm.
safety is what, you know, in counseling, and in, you know, the marriage relationship, children's
Mhm.
relationship, whatever, that I know what safety is, instead of what I thought safety
Mm.
was. So making
Yeah.
myself I'm safe because I'm telling myself I'm safe, instead of feeling it and knowing the difference,
Mhm.
helps open up and be more compassionate to myself, and more compassionate to other people, so that I don't judge them, so that I don't, you know, put so much expectations on both and other people.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's
you're talking
the thing.
about having an experience that allows you to discern other experiences, right? So
Hmm.
you talked about, I learned how to be safe in this group and what that felt like when I was truly safe and I braved
Yeah.
being vulnerable. And then I had an awareness of what that felt like, so that when I went and was in relationship with other people, I could discern whether or not this relationship was safe, and what did I need to do
Yeah.
to navigate co-creating a safe space with someone outside of the group. Were they capable of doing it? Were they not? All those things,
Hmm.
it's then you accept where another person is at as a starting place, and there's freedom in that space. What a great awareness, Rochelle. I really appreciate you taking the time to share your experience with us.
Hmm. Thank you.
Yeah. So you may be wondering what a saturated grace group is. We've talked a little bit. We've actually given you an experience of one. But let me give you some practical things here. It is a safe, confidential spiritual direction community of 3 to 5 people. We meet weekly over Zoom with me as your host. The group incorporates Parker Palmer's circle of trust principles, which is the invade and evade. We talked about that. We make sure that those we're balancing those really, really well, that we're not invading people and we're not evading people. We're walking with and holding space in acceptance and compassion. We also use Tara Brach's RAIN structure in a guided curriculum that invites group members to unlearn judgmental and fixing tendencies, to listen deeply to themselves and others, and to create a life of freedom and wholeness. Tara Brach's RAIN structure, you actually participated in that structure when we looking at the image of the bunny, and so we apply that sometimes to images. We talk about it through contemplative practices, but we also look at specific things that we notice during the week and apply RAIN to them. And we're learning the structure so that when we're away from the group, we might be able to incorporate RAIN in our own daily reflection time or in our own weekly reflection. It's about growing in mindfulness and in awareness of all the layers in which we operate. Each weekly gathering is an hour and a half long, and during that time, we have discussion of what we notice. We also take a short time to have a short contemplative practice. An example of a short contemplative practice was the arrival activity that we did. We took moments to arrive and to breathe and to become grounded in the moment. Those practices are for self-reflection or preparation, and they're also for self-actualization. The open guided curriculum believes that each person has the capacity to uncover their own individualized path to greater wholeness and freedom. The co-created safe space invites you to listen and notice the pathway that unfolds and what steps you would take. In the first 12 weeks, you're going to learn how to co create safety with being present with yourself and others as we gather weekly to explore different practices. We listen without judgment and fixing, and we understand, we just incorporate these principles over and over again. It's not a one and done kind of thing. We use it to invite ourselves to listen to our soul and our heart and our body. This foundational work helps your body and soul begin to unlearn patterns and habits that are no longer helpful, and it takes a while. It does. So while saturated grace groups invite us to many things, there's some things that they cannot do, that they don't do. We are not to replace a counselor or a trauma therapist. While we might go places and we might explore those things, we're not here to replace them. They have specialized services that you might need to still have in place while you're participating in a group. It's also not a place to commiserate with others. And by commiserate, I mean that we don't add harm or trauma to one another or to continue to heap on what another is feeling. The trauma we might resonate with, but everyone's story has a place, and we hold that and we give it space. We give it time to be heard and seen and known. Our community is not a place to judge others outside of the group who don't understand. We may notice that the judgment of others towards us, but we're really diligent to stop the divisive nature of us versus them thinking. That is a learned behavior, to be divisive in the way that we think. And so we can unlearn it, but to unlearn it, we have to learn to accept and have compassion for ourselves. That's where it starts. So, some logistics as well. The group meets for 6 consecutive weeks. We may need to work around some holidays at times before pausing to check in and continuing on for the next 6 weeks. We do this pause in the middle of our 6 weeks to allow everyone the opportunity to reflect and synthesize what they've been learning while they grow in the practice of contemplative and mindful life. We are learning by doing. It's experiential learning here. And it is how humans best learn, but it's not a bunch of information. You're not going to just learn the information and go and do it. It's something that you practice, and we work to do that every day. The saturated grace groups have the opportunity to progress through 3 12-week segments of guided curriculum. That is really at the freedom of the group as they gather and what how they connect. They may choose to continue on and keep doing the work. Curriculum is included in the cost and takes between about 15 minutes to an hour to complete each week. There really is freedom to lean into the curriculum as much or as little as your week allows, because what I've found is that what wants to be said and what needs to be said will be shared when we just take time to notice. Invitations abound for us to look at and to ponder. So, thank you for taking the time to get to know yourself today and those with similar experiences. I want you to walk away knowing that you have created a safe space for yourself today and others during our time. You've gotten a flavor for that. I want to take a moment just to answer maybe a few general questions that people might have that pop up. One was, are the groups gender or lifestyle specific? We would look at this on an individual basis. They might be for people to feel safe and comfortable. We want to be careful at the same time not to overlook the potential that they don't have to be so specific, because there is value when genders are mixed or lifestyles are mixed. But I do understand that there can be greater concern about whether or not people would feel safe in those places. So those are things that we would consider as a trauma-informed spiritual director. This is important for some people, and I want to honor that to make this space safe for people. Other people have said, what is the curriculum like? Can I get a sample? And I would tell you that the curriculum is similar to what you experienced today. You got a flavor of what a group would look like. While you didn't get an opportunity to share your thoughts or to interact, you would have that time and space to do that in a group. The curriculum has invitational moments for you to consider and ponder different things that might have shown up when the curriculum talked about a particular topic, whether it be about relationships, or maybe we talk about how shame and trauma have impacted our lives, and what are the shame messages that we have experienced. And so whatever topic that is, it will become an invitation, and you'll have time to explore and reflect. And I also use image cards because sometimes we need to get outside of our head. We're not really sure how to name something. And a card with an image on it, gives us a starting point to begin to explore deeper work. Mm-hmm. This is another question. A lot happens in 12 weeks. What if I can't make a meeting? Well, I want to tell you that you go where you need to go. If life happens and you can't make the meeting, you will be sorely missed. But at the same time, you're where you need to be, and we support you, and we believe the best of you and the choice that you made where you needed to be. And so there is freedom for you to miss a meeting. There's also freedom for you to show up without reading the curriculum at all. You just show up to be there to hold space. The meeting might look a little different because you haven't done the curriculum, but it's not really about striving and achieving and answering all the questions right or wrong. It's about showing up and holding space for yourself and for another. And so I believe and I notice that when people are missing, a part of the group is missing because we are missing that perspective. And I loved in a group one time where we noticed together and expanded upon an idea, and each person added more value to the topic that we were exploring and expanded our awareness. It was amazing, amazing. And so that is the value of a group. And so while you go where you need to be, you will be missed, but there is no guilt. There is no shame for not being there. There is no judgment for not being there. There's just absolute freedom and support for you. And then another question was, how much time does it take to do the homework each week? Really, honestly, about reading is about 5 to 6 minutes to read. It's intended to be evocative. And what I mean by evocative, it's invitational for you to explore. There are things that you might read through that you might chew on through the whole week, and you don't get to the reflective questions. Maybe you sit down to do the questions so that because you want to contribute to the discussion differently. These are all freedoms that you have. Lots of freedoms, no right answers, no wrong answers. Um, and that is really important for this group to be safe for you, and for others to show up as well. I wondered, Rachelle, were there any other questions that kind of bubbled up to the surface that we should address while we're here in our question and answer period?
Kind of curious about is having our people to think about what was the transition of making you move forward or to be stuck. So, like mine was pull up your bootstraps and, just keep going, just whatever.
Mhm.
And then I've heard suck up, buttercup, suck it up,
Yeah.
going and keep doing whatever. So, just having that, whatever that thing that makes you strive or makes you
Mhm.
um, move forward or get stuck or whatever, it just is kind of interesting to see and ponder of yourself, why you keep doing the things that you keep doing or keep
Mm,
abusing yourself for stuff. So
mm, mhm.
I think that was the only thing that it's not really a question, but it's kind of a question for the audience more of than for you.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's a good awareness to recognize when we are raising hands about what it is that invites you to this space, to be
Hmm.
aware of that and what gets you stuck. Sometimes it might not come to the surface really quickly. It might be hard to discern what is it that gets you stuck sometimes because you've been going, going, going. And that's part of what the value of the group is that you're
Hmm.
giving yourself an hour and a half at minimum to begin a practice that gives yourself space. And one thing I
Hmm.
was incredibly invaluable for me to show up more present with relationships and in the way that I was more true to me was I had a hard time choosing to take time for myself. But when I started leaning into self care in this way that was noticing what was going on for me, I started with it being self care. And everyone's going to come to this
Hmm.
group in a different way. Sometimes it's going to be self care. Somebody might want to say, well, I am wanting to explore things about why I don't feel good about myself. It's more about my self
Hmm.
identity. Really,
Hmm.
and so all these different things might draw you to this group to come. And And in doing so, it will help you identify and discern how to show up more authentically yourself in all the relationships that you have. And most importantly, show up most authentically
Mhm.
to yourself, where you know yourself and you
Yeah.
can feel empowered with greater freedom and with greater wholeness to make next steps and what's your next right
Mhm.
decision. So we do this work because we see freedom come from all different places. We see change happening, but it's not change that I pushed onto people or I said that this is the way. That's what's so cool is to watch people grow in the way that is best to them and is gives
Mhm.
them freedom and wholeness in the long run. So
Mhm.
as I wrap up this time here, I want to invite you to sign up for a group today. The 12-week rate includes the curriculum, some image cards, and weekly discussions and guided contemplative practices for reflection and self-actualization. You also receive a monthly newsletter for free, including a blog and a contemplative practice, and much more can be delivered to your inbox as well. To get the most recent pricing on a group, I would encourage you to go to the link in the group notes that we have here, or I'm not sorry, in the group notes, but in the notes of this webinar, or you can go to www.saturatedgrace /saturated grace group sign up. Oh, sign dot slash sign up to join a group and see the most recent rate. I look forward to you joining a group. Thank you so much for your time that you took today to consider what it might be like for you to join a saturated grace group. You are welcome at this table and you are needed. And so we look forward to an
Mhm.
opportunity to walk alongside you when you're ready.
Mhm.
Thank
Amen.
you.